Above all, reject fear, because when your passion outweighs your fear, you can do incredible things. 15 years ago, I decided to quit my job. Now, I was working at a video production company, and it was a great job. I started there when I was 19 in 2001 and had a great experience. I learned a lot about the agency model, about serving clients. I learned a lot about design and animation. I even met my wife there. It was a good gig, but as time went on, I just started wanting something more. Now, I really developed a love for the web and for digital. Loved digital marketing. But this was a video production company, and I knew they were never going to fully embrace that type of work. I thought about it, I considered it, I talked to my wife about it, and on top of that, when I started there, the culture was really great. It was a fun, supportive place to work, but as time went on, the culture started to degrade a little bit. There was some drama, some gossip that came in. And I remember going home at night, and it just felt kind of taxing, you know, when you experience something like that. And so as I talked to my wife about it one day, she just said, why don't you just start your own business? Why don't you just do this and not complain about it? And I thought, well, I guess that's pretty good advice. And I thought a lot about that, and that idea really took hold. But I was very, very young. Now we're in 2007, and I was at least smart enough to know that I wasn't smart enough to do this on my own. I had to have help. And so there was a guy named Kerry that I worked with, and he worked in the new media department of this organization. Very small department, but he knew a lot about the web, about digital. He had a lot of skills that I didn't have. We had a great working relationship. And so I went to him one day and I said, hey, you know, wouldn't it be cool if we had this place where we got to do websites and digital marketing all the time? Would you be interested in starting a business with me? And he said, no, my wife's pregnant. It was their first kid. There's no way I can leave. This is a good job. I can't leave. And I thought, yeah, I guess that's kind of smart. And my wife was actually pregnant with our first child as well at that time. But I'm a pretty persistent person. And so I just kept asking him and asking him, kept getting no's and no's. And finally one day, he had kind of a bad day. And he said, all right, let's do this. And so we started planning. We started figuring out what to do. We ended up both quitting our jobs then in 2007. We didn't really have a business plan. We never had any funding. We didn't have any clients when we quit. And people ask me all the time, they say, weren't you scared? That must have been incredibly scary for you to do. But as I look back, I was never scared. I never felt any fear. And it's not because I didn't have fear. I do think I had a little bit of fear. But my passion to do this was incredible. I wanted so badly to start this business. I wanted so badly to make this work that I didn't care that the economy was starting to go into recession. I didn't care about any roadblocks or obstacles in my way. I didn't care. But you know, this taught me that when your passion outweighs your fear, you can do incredible things. No great product or service or business or organization or movement ever starts without passion. Passion is movement plus direction. Passion is a positive force that moves us forward through roadblocks towards our goal. Passion is a fire that ignites us, that fuels us, and it burns up the negative forces in our way. Passion is incredible. And again, I love the passion that I saw here today. Passion is so essential for entrepreneurs, for small business owners. You know, you can't fake passion. When someone has passion, you can tell. It's attractive, it's contagious. Passion is necessary for success. But passion is not a constant. Passion dissipates over time. So what do you do when your passion for your craft, for your job, for whatever you're working at, starts to dissipate? So time went on, 2007 came and went, and we started actually getting some clients, which is a big plus. My wife was happy about that. We started getting a little bit of business, a little bit of income. And we started building websites for some good organizations. We were able to get a really small office in 2008. And also in 2008, we actually hired our first employee, who was my wife. And people always say, how could you work with your spouse? Like, I could never do that. But we met at work. I mean, we worked together for so long. That's just what we did, and it worked really well for us. And so we continued on. We hired a few more people. We moved into a new office in 2012. We hired a few more people. We moved into another office, and we continued to grow and get some really great clients. It was a great experience. But as time went on, I noticed that my fear increased a little bit, and a lot of problems came along. That's the price we pay sometimes for doing well, for having success, for moving forward in our careers. But things were working well, and the good news is that my passion stayed strong. When we get to 2015, we had more team members. We had about a team of 18 at that point. And I started to notice a little bit of a problem to creep in. And while my wife was an absolutely essential member of our team, she started our digital marketing department. She was incredible. Her work output was incredible. I noticed that as our team grew, it started to be a little bit of a problem that my wife worked with me. It started to be a hindrance in some cases. There started to be some situations where I would have to step back and not insert myself because she was involved and I couldn't be biased. It affected my leadership a bit. It wasn't a problem for us, but for some of our team members, I think it got a little difficult. And so that was incredibly difficult for us, and we had conversations about it. She loved what she did. I loved having her there. Like I said, she was invaluable. But after a number of conversations, we finally decided it's time for my wife to stop working with me, and she quit. That was incredibly difficult for me. And immediately I had a crisis. Fear was much more than it used to be. Problems crept in. And when this happened, I noticed that for the first time, my passion really dissipated for my company. I started to feel a bit bitter towards it and a bit bitter towards my employees. This type of thing can happen to all of us, no matter who we are and no matter what situation we are in. I think there's probably 5 enemies of passion that can affect us. The first one is problems. So problems creep up on all of us, and like I said, sometimes problems are the price that we pay for the success that we have. The next one is burnout. When you climb a mountain the first time, it's an incredible experience. But when you climb it the 100th time, it's not quite as special. Burnout happens when you're working many hours, you're doing the same thing over and over again, and burnout can be something that really, really destroys passion. I remember when my brother and his wife were pregnant with their first child, they had a big surprise reveal. It was a big deal. It was a big party. Everyone was excited. He just had his 6th kid, and he just texted me. I mean, things change over time. And that's where routine comes in. When we do the same thing over and over and over again, passion can wane. And the 4th one is crisis. Well, as I mentioned, that's something that I experienced, but when a roadblock comes along, when something knocks us off our feet, if it's a death in the family, if it's a huge financial crisis, anything like that can be a huge drain on our passion. And then last but not least is, I think, the greatest enemy to passion, which is fear. Fear is something that we all deal with in some way, shape, or form. Doubt and fear. And I don't know anyone, no matter how experienced they are, successful they are, that doesn't sometimes deal a bit with fear. So here are 5 ways to preserve your passion. And the first one is refocus your passion on what matters now. When I started Blue Compass, I wanted to give good organizations a clear direction for their digital presence. That was very important. But I found myself being just so passionate in the beginning about surviving, about keeping the business alive, about making payroll. And that was enough to drive me in the beginning. But as time has gone on, things have changed and evolved a bit. That wouldn't be enough for me right now to have that as my passion. But these days, I've gotten incredibly passionate about our company culture. I want to have an amazing place that our team loves to work, where they're supported, where they're not looking over their backs, like someone is going to take their credit, where they're able to learn and grow. That's a huge passion for me right now. And I'm also really passionate about our clients and the organizations we work with. I want to help them grow. I want them to get better, be more profitable, so they can hire more people, give them more raises, so those people can send their kids to college and be a blessing to their families. So it's okay as time goes on to let your passions evolve a bit. You change, your business changes, your career changes, the marketplace changes, your audience changes. It's okay for your passions to change. But it's important to set your passions on what matters most. You know, John Kennedy in the 60s went to NASA and he was taking a tour. And as he walked around with his group, he saw a janitor down the hallway mopping. And he walked away from this group, he walked over to that janitor, and he stuck out his hand and said, "Hi, I'm John Kennedy, President of the United States. I'm here to help with funding." And the janitor stuck out his hand, smiled, shook it, and said, "Hi, I'm Michael, and I'm here to help put a man on the moon." I love that attitude. And sometimes we're caught doing tedious things. We feel like what we do doesn't matter. But remember that passion and that vision that matters the most. Number 2 is do not allow passion to be just a feeling. You know, our society, we hear a lot about love. Love's obviously very important, but a lot of times it's portrayed as a feeling. And it is in some ways. But you know, true love is really a dedication and a commitment to someone or to something or an idea. It's a commitment even when things get really hard. And I think passion is the same way. Sometimes if we allow ourselves to think our passion is just our feeling, how we're feeling about it, we're not going to have the motivation that we need to move forward. Feelings come and go, feelings change, and sometimes feelings aren't logical. And so it's so important to make that commitment and that dedication to your passion. Don't let it be just a feeling, it has to be a dedication. Engage in regular motivation. So years ago, Zig Ziglar, the great inspirational speaker, would fill stadiums full of people sharing his motivational messages. And he did this time and time again. And one time after his presentation, people were leaving and he was approached backstage by a member of the media. And that guy said, "Mr. Ziglar, this is great, people are excited, they're jumping up and down and they're leaving motivated. But what happens in 1 week? They're not gonna feel the same way in 1 week. They're not gonna be motivated. What happens in 1 month? This is a waste of money. Motivation doesn't last." And Zig Ziglar said, "You're right, but neither does bathing. You have to do it every day, or at least you should do it every day, somewhat frequently. Bathing isn't permanent. Neither is eating. We have to eat every day. Eating's not permanent either. Just because motivation doesn't last doesn't mean it's not valuable. Just because motivation is temporary doesn't mean we don't all need it. And so one of the things I've found is I have to constantly motivate myself. And for me, that's always reading a leadership book, or maybe listening to the right podcast. Going to a leadership conference is really awesome for me. And so think about what motivates you, and you have to do it regularly. Don't do it when you're down. Do it when you're already motivated and feeling really good, so that you don't get down. Incredibly important. And then another thing when it comes to your motivation that I found was I have to take breaks. And if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a busy professional, sometimes it's really, really hard to turn off that drive and to step back and take a break. It was very hard for me for many, many years. If I would go a full Saturday without working, I would feel nervous, I would feel a little weird, I would feel unproductive, I would feel guilty. It was difficult to take time off for vacation. But then my friend and mentor Tom Clegg told me once, you know, downtime and vacation time is productive time. It's just in a different form than your normal 9-to-5 productive time. We have to take breaks to slow down and to recharge, or we won't be able to continue doing it. Number 4 is to reject fear. Maybe this is the most important. Fear kills, fear destroys. Fear is an incredible enemy of passion. And we all have those moments of doubt, especially when you're an entrepreneur, you're a small business owner. Those moments of doubt creep in. Are you really that good at this? Is this really what you're supposed to be doing? Is this really gonna last? Can you really make payroll? Is there really a future in this? For years, I was plagued with those questions. For many years, especially early on, I would always think, oh man, I have to make this much in payroll. We have to make this much income. And I always felt, when is this gonna fall apart? How long can this charade continue? When's this business gonna fall apart? I finally learned that I wasn't playing to win, I was playing not to lose. So, play to win. Fear is just an acronym for false evidence appearing real. That's all fear is. Reject fear. And it's difficult because we all have those doubts that creep into our mind. It happens to me too. But one thing that's helped me is to realize that I am not my mind. And just because a negative thought enters your mind doesn't mean you need to entertain it. Thoughts are just words and pictures. They're not reality. And when your mind presents you with a negative thought that's starting to get you a little sweaty, it's making your heart beat, making you feel a little fearful, just say, thanks, mind, but I'm not interested. It might not be possible to fully get it out of your mind, but focus on something else and realize you are not your mind is just part of you, and your mind presented that thought to you. And just because it did, doesn't mean you need to focus on it. And then number 5 is to share your passion with others. And I remember a few years ago, I got a call from a guy that was starting a burger restaurant in Des Moines. And he wanted to talk about potentially doing some digital marketing. So I went over to his restaurant. It was being constructed, it was being put together. And for 1 hour, he walked me around that restaurant and he told me everything about what they were doing. He was so passionate. He was so pumped up. He couldn't have been more excited. He told me about these two $30,000 ovens that cook burgers with steam and cooks them perfect every time. It's the healthiest way to cook a burger. He took me over to the ice cream bar. They're importing ice cream from Wisconsin. You can't get this ice cream anywhere else in the state. It's gonna be fantastic. He showed me the big screen TVs they have. They're gonna have movie nights. He showed me how all of the servers have these credit card machines on their belts. It's gonna reduce the number of steps they have to take. He was so excited. By the time I walked out of there, I could not wait for this place to open. So passion is infectious. And I think the mantra of passion is the more you give, the more you get. One of the ways to preserve your passion is to share it with others. Now, a lot of times, we're humble. We don't want to brag too much about our brand or our business. But it's okay to brag a little bit. Be a cheerleader for your business. Be a cheerleader for your brand. Get excited about it. Let other people know about it. Don't be so humble you're not going to talk about it, you're not going to brag about it. Share with others. And I think this is just as important virtually and digitally as it is in person. I see a lot of organizations' websites, and we've built and we host and we manage hundreds and hundreds of websites. So we always get to see the initial website before we redesign it. I've seen a lot of bad websites in my days. And the worst thing about seeing a bad website is when I go and I get to see a really incredible organization that's doing great work, and they have great team members, and they're really incredible, but their website doesn't reflect the quality of their organization. Digital and web can be expensive sometimes, but it's really worth the cost. Get a website that reflects the quality of your brand. Because people judge you when they go to your website. People judge you online, whether they should or not. Be a cheerleader for your brand on social media. Invest in some form of search engine optimization. Be the answer that your target audience searches for in Google. It's incredibly important. So be passionate about your brand online just like you are in person. So I wallowed in pity for a little while. I struggled. I had some difficulties. And months went by, and I started to realize finally that this wasn't my business's fault. This wasn't my team members' fault. This was the cost of growing. This was the cost of success. This is just something that needed to happen. And looking back, it's really been a blessing. I think God put that in our life so that we would move in the direction we have and learn what we did. Sometimes we grow the most through difficult situations. And today, my wife works at a new business. She has an incredible career. She's a VP of search engine optimization. She works at a big company nationally. She works with some amazing brands, and she's doing incredibly well. We still get to talk about geeky things like search engine optimization. It's great. We get to share our days with one another. I get to learn from her and vice versa. And I'm doing pretty well too. Thankfully, my fear has decreased since then. I still have a number of problems, but the good news is my passion has returned and I'm excited to move forward. And Blue Compass has grown. We've really been blessed. We have dozens of team members now. We get to work with incredible brands each and every day. We have a really fun office where people aren't worrying about drama or gossip. We're not perfect, but we have a great team. And we get to do what we love every day. And it kind of feels like hanging out with friends every day. We get to give good businesses a clear direction for their digital presence, and we get to have a great culture. And we get to have a dog-friendly office too, which is a bonus. So as you think about your brand, as you think about your business, your career, I really encourage you to focus your passion on what matters most. Take time for breaks. Take time for motivation. Share your passion with others. And above all, reject fear, because when your passion outweighs your fear, you can do incredible things. Thank you.